Barcelona gave Lionel Messi everything, a home that Argentina couldn't offer. And then, after 2 decades of loyalty, 6 Ballon d'Ors, 4 Champions League titles, and 672 goals, Barcelona repaid him with a press conference, a box of tissues, and the door. Everyone saw it. Everyone had an opinion. After the 2024 Copa America, Messi told Julian Alvarez to join Barcelona, but he hesitated because he'd seen what they did to the greatest player in their history. Messi's answer changed the way Alvarez saw everything, and if anyone had actually listened to it, it might have changed the way the rest of us see football clubs forever. But nobody did. To understand why Messi's answer matters, you have to understand what Barcelona was to him, not what it became, what it was. Messi arrived at La Masia at 13 years old. He was small, quiet, and homesick. His body was betraying him. A growth hormone deficiency meant that without treatment, his football career was over before it started. Newell's Old Boys in Argentina couldn't afford the medical costs. River Plate passed. The boy who would become the greatest of all time was, at that point, a medical expense that nobody wanted to cover. Barcelona said yes. They funded the treatment. They gave him a place to live, a place to train, a place to grow. And over the next few years, something happened that went beyond football. Messi didn't just develop as a player at Barcelona. He grew up there. His childhood, his friendships, his identity, all of it was woven into the fabric of that club. When he scored his first goal, it wasn't just a professional milestone. It was the fulfillment of a promise that a club made to a kid who had nowhere else to go. That's the part people forget. When they talk about Messi and Barcelona, they talk about trophies, records, and El Clásicos. But the foundation of the relationship wasn't silverware. It was something more personal. Barcelona wasn't just the club Messi played for. It was the place that saved his career and, in some ways, his life. Which is exactly why the ending hurt the way it did.
Hey everyone! This video is sponsored by OK Jersey, rated an impressive 4.5 stars on Trustpilot. Fans love them for high-quality jerseys, great prices, only £15, and super fast delivery. They offer a huge selection of new season, retro, and even upcoming World Cup kits. Use code MAUS at checkout to get 8% off your order. Don't wait, go check them out.
For almost 20 years, Messi was Barcelona. Not a player at the club itself. Managers came and went, presidents rose and fell, generations of teammates cycled through. But Messi remained. He was the one constant in an institution that reinvented itself every few seasons. And in return, Barcelona built its entire identity around him. Pep Guardiola's tiki-taka revolution, built around Messi. The 2009 sextuple, Messi, at the centre. The 2011 Champions League final, widely considered one of the greatest team performances in football history. Messi, conducting the orchestra. He didn't just win for them, he defined what winning at Barcelona looked like. The style, the philosophy, the idea that beauty and dominance could coexist. Messi made that real. He turned a football philosophy into a football empire. But empires have a tendency to rot from the inside. And Barcelona's rot started long before anyone was willing to admit it. The financial mismanagement was staggering. Under President Josep Maria Bartomeu, Barcelona spent recklessly, overpaid for transfers that didn't work, and inflated wages to unsustainable levels. The club's debt ballooned past €1 billion. They were spending money they didn't have on players they didn't need, while the one player they actually needed was watching the institution crumble around him. Messi tried to leave in 2020. He sent a now famous burofax requesting his release. The club refused. They held him to his contract, dragged the situation into a legal grey area, and essentially forced him to stay for one more season against his will. It was the first public crack in the relationship. The first time the world saw that Barcelona's loyalty to Messi had an expiration date, and it was tied to a spreadsheet, not a legacy. Then came the summer of 2021, and the crack became a canyon. Here's the thing about Messi's departure from Barcelona. It wasn't a dramatic fallout. It wasn't a public feud or a betrayal in the traditional football sense. It was worse than that. It was administrative. By the summer of 2021, the new president, Joan Laporta, had inherited a financial disaster. La Liga's salary cap rules meant that even though Messi had agreed to take a significant pay cut, Barcelona still couldn't register him. The numbers didn't work. The mess was too deep. So, the greatest player in the club's history held a press conference. He cried. He said he'd done everything he could to stay. He told the room he wasn't ready for this, and then he left. Not in a blaze of glory. Not after a farewell match, or a victory lap, or a standing ovation from a full Camp Nou. He left through the side door of institutional failure. No golden goodbye. No statue unveiling. Just tears, confusion, and a flight to Paris. And the football world split into two reactions. The first was anger. Anger at Barcelona for letting it happen. Anger at the executives who mismanaged the finances so badly that they couldn't keep the one player who meant everything. The second reaction was quieter, but just as important. It was a question. If Barcelona could do this to Messi, what does that say about the club? About any club? Because Messi wasn't some mid-table journeyman whose contract expired. He was the living embodiment of Barcelona's identity, and the club let him walk away like a clerical error. That question would come back to haunt them, and it came back through the mouth of a young Argentine striker who had been paying very close attention. After Argentina won the 2024 Copa America, Julian Alvarez and Messi reportedly had a conversation about the future. And it was Messi who brought up Barcelona, not Alvarez. Messi. The man who was pushed out the door, who cried at his own farewell, who was denied the goodbye he earned over 20 years of service. He looked at Alvarez and told him he should play for Barcelona. Let that land for a second, because that is not how this story was supposed to go. The normal reaction, the human reaction, would be bitterness, resentment, a quiet warning, don't go there. I gave them everything and they threw me away. But Messi didn't say any of that. Instead, he recommended the club that had failed him to a teammate he respected. And when he explained why, he said something that cut straight through the noise of modern football. He told Alvarez, essentially, that you don't play for the management, you play for the club. He compared it to a country. You love the land, the history, the people. Not the politicians running it at any given moment. Presidents change, executives change, the men in suits who make the decisions, they cycle through like seasons. But the badge, the shirt, the identity of the place, that stays, that's permanent, and that's what you play for. In one answer, Messi separated Barcelona, the institution, from Barcelona, the men who failed him, and he chose to protect the institution. He chose to love the thing that hurt him, because the thing that hurt him and the people who hurt him were not the same. But Alvarez wasn't buying it. Not completely. Because Alvarez had watched what happened. He'd seen how Barcelona treated the greatest player to ever wear the shirt. He'd seen the press conference, the tears, the administrative indifference. And his response to Messi's recommendation wasn't excitement. It was hesitation. His concern wasn't about the league, the city, or the quality of the football. It was about the institution itself. If they could do that to Lionel Messi, what would they do to Julian Alvarez? And that hesitation, from a young player in his prime, being personally told by the greatest of all time to join a club, tells you everything about the damage Barcelona inflicted on their own reputation. Messi was standing right in front of him, vouching for the badge, and Alvarez still wasn't sure. That's not a PR problem. That's a trust collapse. The next generation of footballers watched the Messi situation unfold, took notes, and the notes said, "Be careful," even when the man himself tells you it's worth it. That's what makes this conversation so powerful. Two reactions to the same betrayal, and both of them were right. Messi was right that the club is bigger than the men who run it. Alvarez was right that the men who run it can still destroy you. One chose love, the other chose caution, and neither one was wrong. Alvarez's hesitation and Messi's answer together form one of the most revealing exchanges in modern football, because they expose a contradiction that sits at the heart of every major club. Clubs sell loyalty. They sell the idea that the badge is sacred, that the colours mean something, that players who give everything will be honoured for it. But when the finances get ugly, loyalty is the first thing they sacrifice. And the fans know it. The players know it. The next generation of talent knows it. What Messi did was separate the two things that everyone else keeps tangling together: the club and the people running it, the history and the headlines, the shirt and the signature on the contract. Most people who leave a situation the way Messi left Barcelona turn bitter. They weaponize the pain. They use the betrayal as fuel for resentment. Messi didn't do that. He took the wound, left it open, and protected the love anyway. And that might be the final difference between legends and everyone else. Not the goals, not the trophies, the capacity to love something bigger than the people who let you down. Barcelona failed the greatest player in its history. That's a fact. The financial mismanagement, the botched farewell, the institutional cowardice, all of it is on the record. But Messi's response to Alvarez proves something that the executives, the accountants, and the contract lawyers will never understand. The bond between a player and a club, when it's real, doesn't live in a contract. It lives somewhere they can't reach. Alvarez was right to be cautious. Messi was right to still believe. And the rest of the football world? They were too busy arguing about transfers and tactics to notice that the greatest player of all time had just explained what football actually means. Barcelona may have broken the contract, but they never broke the bond. And somehow, that makes the whole thing hurt more, not less, because it proves that Messi deserved better. And he knew it, and he loved them anyway. If you want to follow the story about how Guardiola conquered world football with a team of academy kids, check out our video here.